Well, anybody have anything else before Scott starts?
No.
And this was going to be what, sir?
We're going to talk about communication and language today. I'm gonna run through a recap of some of the basic points, philosophical points I've been talking about, and then move on and talk a little bit about how to discuss these things with people. Okay?
Usually it takes two people to want to talk.
Everybody wants to talk. I like to
Some
talk.
people don't want to listen.
That would be that
Your
cop.
cop didn't say so.
That's what I said, that'd be that
Yeah.
cop.
Well, maybe we can talk a little bit about why that is, why that happens.
We could go on and on and on.
I'll listen.
You talk, you listen.
I have a question
Yeah.
for you. Maybe not pertaining to this. We were talking, were you here last week? No.
We were uptown.
Yeah, the Glenbeck thing?
No,
Maybe
he
the
wasn't,
week-
he wasn't here the week before that.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, we got into this Agenda 21 and all this kind of stuff again. It was very important. We were talking about a methodology of these, a lot of these groups, a way to, if you're in a group meeting, say discussing things like Agenda 21 or what we were talking about, this Noble 20 vision thing.
Noble vision.
That they have ways of isolating people that don't agree with them. And is there a term for that?
Ways of isolating people that don't.
Exactly what they did to you in the
just-
occupied way, they put you guys in your
Their
separate.
facilitator, the facilitator of the group will turn the conversation in the direction that he wants the conversation to go. If you're in a group setting and the facilitator, the person in charge of this meeting or whatever, they have an agenda. Their agenda is, say, to pass this windmill ordinance.
Yeah.
And if you come up with objections, his goal is to make your conversation as short as possible in order to sway the rest of the people in his direction.
Yeah.
So I think that's
There is a term for that technique, and I was just wondering if you got.
No, I'm not familiar. This is something you were talking about, and somebody wanted other people to be aware of this and go, look, when you're in a meeting and a facilitator has control of an agenda, look for them to do this thing where, hey, viewpoints that they're not happy with kind of get shuffled to the side, and then they can engineer the meeting in such a way that their viewpoint kind of takes precedence, and then they reach their goal that they want. Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, that's not something that I've heard a lot about. Somebody in here talked about that?
Yeah, Troy.
Troy had read some on it or
Troy
something?
was talking about how they, well, didn't, and who else? Dave Ober, that's who it was, Dave
Yeah.
Ober.
Interesting. So it seems like probably the best thing to do in that situation is to make sure that everybody at the meeting is aware, right? Like if I was going to stand up and I wanted to say something, then I would say that I feel pretty worried about the way the meeting's being conducted because I want to make sure that I have as much time as others who disagree to make my case stated,
Or you'd be thrown out.
right?
Well,
I'd be thrown out.
A facilitator's job is to keep things on the subject matter supposedly that the meeting is held for. That's what they're supposed to do. And
Yeah.
you can get into those situations where people are all over the place, and what they're supposed to do is bring them back to the subject you're supposed to be working on, otherwise your meeting could go all night.
Yeah.
But that's not the same thing.
So there's a need to focus, right, to get things done.
Yeah.
But that
That's not
same
the
power
same
to
thing.
focus to get things done could be also a power to focus so that some people's need to get heard isn't met, right?
Well, they'll demonize you.
Yeah.
They'll demonize you to get you to sound crazy. So even if you do get to talk, people will say, that guy's way out there. I ain't gonna listen to him.
Yeah, and then people won't want to listen to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that a little bit today, I think, hopefully. All right, so we've gone through some basic elements of philosophy. I presented this definition of philosophy. Study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence. We talked about logic. Logic being defined as non-contradictory thought. We talked about logical arguments, right, which have premises and conclusions. Is everybody here for that? A premise might be all trees are made of wood. I have a tree in my front yard, be another premise. Therefore, I have wood in my front yard. So this winter, when the American currency collapses, I can chop it down and burn it to keep warm. But that would be two premises and a conclusion. We also talked about validity and soundness. If the premises, if true, it doesn't matter if they're true or not, but if they were true, they would lead to the conclusion, then it's a sound, or it's a valid argument. If there's an untrue premise, then it's not a sound argument. So the premises can be false, but if they were, in the case that they were true, if they would lead to the conclusion, then it's still considered a valid argument. But if there's an untrue premise, it's not a sound argument. Does everybody understand the difference there?
It can be sound but not valid, or valid and not sound.
Exactly, yeah. Because I used to, if someone told me, hey, your argument's not valid, I didn't look at that from a logical standpoint. I thought, well, you're saying that something in the argument isn't true, or that the conclusion isn't true, but whether the conclusion's true or the premises are true really doesn't figure into validity. I presented my way of deriving property rights. It's based on people being rational, volitional, and self-interested, right? We make our own choices. We do so for a result that we want. To have more money, to have better relationships, to do the things that we want to do, to have more freedom. We make choices in our own interest. Based on that, if individuals have those characteristics, then if we decide to pursue our own interests by tearing down the interests of another, we have a fight on our hands. We end up in a fight with somebody because our interests are now challenging their interests. So you have a situation where one person's trying to win and have the other person lose. So the solution is to have a code where all interactions are voluntary, where you build yourself up, but you also allow others to do the same. So relationships are voluntary, mutually beneficial. They're not win-lose, where I'm taking something of yours. They're win-win, where we're both building our own nest up together. So, you're looking ahead of my slides, aren't you? So,
I like the kitty and the dog.
You like that?
Yeah.
So now that we have our logical basis, we can go talk about this with other people and just have one big group hug and everybody's going to be in agreement, right? Is that right? Or do you get that?
Yeah. That's what I do when Cody talks.
When Cody talks? Yeah.
But yours,
Maybe
Mom.
sometimes if he's talking real loud, you could also go, la 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 la.
No, all she has to do is talk normally, and it's just as annoying.
Why is that? I assume that this is pretty much a universal experience, right? Where you present a couple pretty basic premises, and you want somebody to acknowledge your conclusion, and they won't do that, right? They're not listening to you. I'm interested why you think that is.
Because we're set in our way.
We're set in our ways.
We're self-interested, so I don't care what you want to do.
You already have.
So maybe they see that if I acknowledge what you're saying, it won't serve my interests.
Good.
The self-interest thing.
Because if you already have your beliefs, you're not going to let somebody else change them.
Why not?
I don't know. Because I'm right.
It's an emotion. It's an emotion.
It's an
It's
emotion.
an emotional thing, maybe a
Some of it,
protective thing.
yeah.
All right, so what I want to talk about is some ways to work on that. Some ways to maybe work on being able to hear each other better.
It probably does depend on what person you're talking to, because if you dislike them already, you're a lot less likely to listen to them. Whereas if you like them, you know, you'd be willing to give them more. So it probably does have a lot more to do with emotional.
Yeah.
Because if you already dislike them, you're not going to let them win.
Or at least
Right.
respect.
So you don't want them to win.
But you have to
Right,
respect their
right.
opinion.
But yeah, but you're going, man, but I know I'm right. You know, because
Yeah.
you're never going to let that person win because you dislike them.
I think that's why Scott does such a good job of talking to people, because he does it in such a way that's not threatening.
And he's
What are you saying,
respectable and
Mike?
he's honest.
I do?
I'm saying that I don't do as well as Scott does.
Did you hear an accusation there?
No, I know I do, and I just agree with him.
Well, what is it about us that we like or dislike someone, right? Like if I'm in a conversation with somebody and I want them to see things my way, right? I want their agreement or their acknowledgement of what I'm saying to them. Do we have this light that goes on that says like or dislike? I dislike you, therefore I'm not going to accept your idea. And what worries me is if we're going, well, I don't like you, I'm not going to accept your idea. Are we logically processing the idea?
No,
Maybe it's a good idea.
I don't think we even process it because we already had our mind made up before we even, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so there's something stopping us.
Yeah.
There's no trust between someone that you don't know, so someone that comes up to me with a new idea that I don't know, I'm not even going to pay any attention because I don't trust them. So anything about you is going to be shady until you have a rapport with me that becomes trustful.
So you don't like them because you're not familiar with them, right? Then you're not going to accept their ideas because I don't know this person, you know, I don't have any background on them.
It's like if you would have came up to me today and said some of the conversations we've had, I'd go, this guy's nuts.
This guy's a nut
I'm
bag.
not going to pay any attention to him. He's just one of those people that you're like, yeah, yeah. We're having a conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
But now I've known you for a while now, and you think logically, and I've built trust with you and respect you, so now I'm willing to listen to you.
Okay, so it's important to have that background.
Defensive tool.
Yeah, yeah. All right, because we've all had people tell us things and then they later turned out not to be true, so maybe we don't have some trust because of that. Well, what I want to talk about is how to work on, just in your day-to-day interactions, maybe trying to go around that process, right? And look past these faces, like these enemy images that we develop where we decide what this person is and who this person is. So I'm going to show this videotape. And I think Mike's already seen this, but we'll watch this all the way through and then I want to talk about it afterwards.
Agenda 21.
Hi guys, today's rant is on Agenda 21,
I don't like
which I was reminded of when a friend of mine invited me to attend a presentation by a fellow named Michael Shaw. To find out about this guy, I went online and plugged in his name, and a video on here on YouTube popped up called Agenda 21 for Dummies. And so I clicked on that to learn about Agenda 21, which I knew about before, but I'd simply forgotten about. And what it is, it was this video presented by a group calling itself Liberal Bias. And that should tell you a lot of what you need to know. So what it is Michael Shaw and a bunch of his right-wing reactionary, overreactionary, redneck morons complaining and fear-mongering about Agenda 21. And what this is was the document created 18 years ago at the Rio Summit on biodiversity and sustainable development that's supposed to guide us through the 21st century. And he starts explaining it. This dummy starts explaining it to his other dummies, and I'm listening to them and cheering on everything they're saying because it sounds everything coming out of their mouth is brilliant. But the thing about it is they're complaining about it. So they have this talking about things that, according to Agenda 21, are unsustainable. They list herbicides. No shit, Sherlock. Herbicides are unsustainable. Pesticides, unsustainable. Hell yes, they're unsustainable. Bravo. Fossil fuels. Do you believe this? Agenda 21 says that fossil fuels are unsustainable. Hallelujah. Someone is admitting that fossil fuels are unsustainable. Paved roads. We have enough paved roads on this planet. But anyway, I'm sitting here listening to the very people complaining about Agenda 21 and saying that Agenda 21 is a great breath of fresh air. I agree with every goddamn word in it. Things should have been Agenda 1 if it had been written about 20 centuries ago. We might not be in the shape we are in on this planet. And this document from Rio is a tiny little place to start. It is the first little tiptoe into getting this planet back on track. And there you have Agenda 21 for intelligent people, compliments of Hambone. You can thank me 100 years from now. Bye, guys.
Alright, so that's Hambone.
No kidding.
How's he gonna convince anybody?
Playing with his
I
toes.
mean, he's insulting everybody that doesn't agree with him. So you're
I
an
don't trust a
idiot.
guy that picks their toes.
That's what I didn't like. I didn't like a guy playing with his
Right
toes.
off the bat, the barefoot.
Right off his appearance.
You lost all credibility,
Sitting
right?
on the rock with his legs crossed. I had a professor.
Alright,
who
let's
used to
describe
do
this
that.
guy. I want to get some descriptive words.
He's
What?
a tree hugger. No. A hippie tree hugger is what he reminded me of.
He doesn't, one thing, he doesn't present any facts.
He what?
He doesn't even describe Agenda 21.
Oh, he doesn't.
He
have
did.
snacks.
I cut that part out because it's just getting too long.
Oh. So there's been editing.
Oh.
I wasn't
Oh.
informed about this before the video started. He could be a very intelligent guy now.
Are you the facilitator?
Picks his toes.
I'm the facilitator, so I'll set the agenda
So
here.
we're gonna see it Scott's way or no way. Or he'll handcuff us to it.
Sir, are you carrying a gun?
Yes,
I
so
thought he
let
was
me
very
know that.
condescending and insulting. Just to anybody that didn't agree with him.
Anything else?
And that's no way to win an argument.
Looks like he could use a bar of soap, but.
Detective movie. Picking the toes of Tootsie.
Needs a
Yeah.
bar of soap.
Picking the toe, this thing did drive me nuts. Him doing
Anything
that.
else?
Look at that.
No? Yes? No?
I'm sorry.
Any other descriptive words for this guy? Camo.
What a name.
All right.
Jerk.
Any more?
No.
Alright. So, we got guy that picks his toes, condescending, insulting, that's no way to win an argument, needs a bar of soap, jerk, tree hugger, hippie, and has no facts. So, what I would like people to think about is, if you had an opportunity to talk to this guy, if this is the imagery that you went into that discussion with, this is the image that you hold of him, how likely is it that he's going to listen to anything that you say?
He's not.
Right now.
He's not going
He's
to.
not going to listen to anything you say. What about that as imagery? If you go into a conversation with this guy, going, you are not going to listen to anything that I say. What are the chances that whatever need you have in that conversation, right? To have him understand you, to have him listen to you, whatever your need is, what are the odds that he's going to want to meet that need? Because I worry that if you're going into the conversation going, well, this guy's never going to listen to me, he's not going to listen to you. If that's what you want, is to be listened to, and you already have that image of him in your mind, he's not going to listen to you.
I'd just say you have a lot of interesting conclusion here. What are your facts? You know, where are your facts coming from? What makes you think this?
Well, just general experience. General experience.
Okay.
Like, maybe I'm wrong, but if I was to come up to you and go, you know, you're one of those right-wing, redneck, conservative, warmongering people, and I think you ought to consider that there ought to be more welfare and massive cuts to the defense budget. I'm just making the general conclusion that you're probably less likely to listen to what I have to say.
I think
If I have a different point of view than you.
I think he set the stage from the start with his speech and his condescending attitude. He's already setting people up, whether they even had a chance of listening to him not to, because he's so obnoxious.
Right, so he's obnoxious and he's condescending.
Yeah.
Right. Now those are very accurate assessments, but if your need is to gain his ear for any reason, and you come to him thinking you're obnoxious and condescending, I question whether your need in that discussion is going to get met. And it doesn't have to be an example that's this extreme, right? It could just be somebody that you have a minor disagreement, or somebody in your life that's doing something that's a little bit, that's making it so life is not so much fun for you, right? So what I'm proposing is a switch from looking at somebody using judgments, right? Characterizations, telling them what they are, putting them in a category of who they are, to looking deeper than that and looking at on a more objective level. Does that make sense? Do you know where I'm coming from as far as why I came to that conclusion?
I think that's what I said before. I would just ask him, you know.
Okay.
Obviously, he's very passionate about his beliefs, and I would like to know more about it. And where are the facts, you know, why he believes what he believes.
Yes, what's this guy feel? What kind of feelings does he have as you see him sitting there talking? How do you think that he feels? You said he's passionate, right?
Well, wouldn't you think though, if he's seen us, that he's gonna have those same, but towards us? You know?
Prejudices?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's.
Yes.
So you're gonna be even with him?
No, I'm just saying, so
what
if
do
I
you want? What is it that you want? If I'm going to talk to him, I want him to understand me. I want to be understood. I want him to let me talk. I want to be heard. There's two needs that I have in that conversation. If my goal is to get even, those needs aren't going to get met.
No, but
right?
I'm saying, but if you go in there and, you know, and he's having those same doubts about you, is he going to listen to anything you say either? So you both have to be doing what you're talking about.
Do you?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so you feel worried that if somebody has enemy imagery of you, and you go into the discussion, whatever needs you have aren't going to get met because they're not going to listen to you.
Either, you know,
right.
Because exactly the same reason why we weren't going to listen.
Yeah.
If you turn the tables on him and treated him the way he was treating you, judging from that,
Then neither of your means.
you know, I mean, you would, I mean, I wouldn't do that, but he doesn't seem to have a problem with that. So how do you respond to something like that? You either, you know, say, well, excuse me, you know, I feel differently. This is the way I see it, and but it isn't going to get anywhere because he's nasty. And you don't want to be nasty, so you're going to have to just terminate the conversation.
Right. So you hear this guy talk, and you feel pretty upset about the prospects that you might have in talking to him. You don't think that you're going to be able to communicate with him. Okay.
Well, it isn't that even as much as it is his whole attitude. He's just so, he's so belligerent and so nasty, and I guess I see so much of that. Let's put it into political scene the way I see it, which may be from my perspective, but it just seems like the left is constantly attacking viciously people on the right. And people on the right don't fight back. They don't go back. They're not going to do that. There's a what would you call it, an ethic there that won't allow them to cross that line.
Yeah.
What the other side doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you deal with something like that? It, you know, I get so frustrated when I see the people that we're supporting and would like to see take over our government because they don't defend themselves from these people.
Yeah, so you see the offense isn't going on and you're afraid what the result of that's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you lose more freedom, right, every year from that process.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like a two-way street, and it seems like the barriers are more from one side. To me, which is telling you right where I'm coming from, the barriers are more from the left than they are from the right.
Yeah.
I don't see people demonstrating on the right doing the kinds of things that you've seen people demonstrating on the left doing. It's just, they wouldn't think of behaving like that.
So you feel like the way it is now, it's not fair? Or
Well,
it's one-sided?
I think it's going to cause, you know, if you want to go that far, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know how to fix it.
To me, it should be all facts. Both sides should be
Right.
doing facts when it comes to politics and what their agenda is.
When you see people on the left, and you say that people are more like this guy on the left, right, in
Mhm.
general? Well, do you think that's because they're angry? They feel angry?
Or is it passion?
I think it's because they haven't been brought up to be decent to other people, that they feel entitled and like they can just act like that.
Mm-hmm.
That they haven't been taught to be polite and to give the other person an opportunity to express their views without being insulting.
Right. So you think there's some elements of background in it, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe they had some needs to be treated in a certain way when they were younger, and now that's manifested later on and they're difficult to talk to.
Oh, I think that's part of it. I think some of it's environmental. A lot of it's environmental.
Yeah.
Don't you think a lot of it's helplessness?
Is what?
Helplessness? They don't know what to do.
So you think they feel helpless?
Like the Occupy Wall Street. You know, they were protesting because they were upset. But about what? They couldn't put their finger on it. Well, they were just upset.
Well, they give you generalities.
Right. Right, but that doesn't make anything happen. You know, and government is so big now that it's really difficult to try to say how do we set it, you know, turn it around or whatever. It's the individual is helpless against it.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
All right, so we feel helpless and they feel overwhelmed, right? Occupiers.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody in here who feels helpless and overwhelmed when it comes to government?
If you look around,
Is there anybody in here that
10
doesn't
people.
feel helpless and overwhelmed?
We wouldn't be here if we did.
You don't? All right, we got one that's
I
not.
feel helpless, all I
Yeah, but
can do is
he's
vote.
a cop, so.
All I can do is vote.
Well, that's right. You're not
Talk to other
totally
people, see how they
helpless.
feel. Enter into conversations at lunch. Did you hear what Joe, swore?
All right, but
Joe
what
Schmo did in Congress yesterday?
Sometimes I don't
I'd
think
like people to think about
we
that.
are no different.
We just talked
You know,
about the occupiers feeling helpless and overwhelmed. And everybody in here feels helpless and overwhelmed.
Yeah,
Is-
but we
is there some commonality
we
there?
didn't poop on police cars.
Yeah, blame the cops.
You know, I mean, this,
Where I did.
you know,
Yeah.
it's just,
But no, I see what you're saying, because you're saying basically a lot of the stuff, we're the same, we're equal on.
The difference is in my discussions with a lot of liberals they're always looking for the big savior government to come in and help them. Versus what I hear around this table is, we're gonna take responsibility. What do we need to do? And that's the difference. And when you listen, and I listen to a lot of the Occupy videos and the discussions and stuff, and all of them, you know, they weren't saying we